We'll move on now to the discussion student panel. So we have 4 panelists joining us today, and they're really representing the spectrum of students. So from honours, masters, PhD, and we even have a recently completed PhD student, and also from different campuses of the Institute. So the first thing I might do is just ask each of the panelists to introduce themselves and give us a brief description of their current position and projects, and we'll take it from there. So perhaps Lisa, if you want to kick things off.
Hi, so it's me again. So as David said, I'm a second-year PhD student, but I also did my honours at the Florey, and I also then worked as a research assistant for a year before starting my PhD. And I work in the discovery science team looking at GPCR structures and drug design, with the idea of hopefully designing new drugs for a range of neuro diseases.
Thanks, Lisa. Ulysses?
Hi, I'm Ulyss. I'm an honours student finishing up in about a month. I'm in Tony Hannon's Epigenetics and Neuroplasticity Lab, and I'm working on how paternal stress affects behaviours in their offspring intergenerationally.
Thanks, Ulyss. Brandon?
Yeah, hi. My name is Brandon. I'm finishing up my first year of Masters. I'm part of the mental health team under Professor Andy Lawrence doing behavioural neuroscience work. So I'm actually looking at a particular neuropeptide's effects on conditioned fear behaviour in a preclinical mouse model, and hopefully that can lead to developing new therapeutics for related disorders like anxiety and PTSD.
Great. And Ramika?
Hello, so my name's Ramika, and I'm actually now a postdoc at the Florey, but I completed my PhD last year, and I was doing my PhD at the Austin campus of the Florey, so doing clinical research with neuroimaging, so using MRI techniques, looking at dementia.
So perhaps if I can continue with you, Ramika, what made you choose the Florey as the place to come?
Sure. So I actually moved from Sydney to Melbourne to do my PhD. I did my honours project in sort of neuropathology and knew that I really wanted to do sort of clinical research, knew that I wanted to sort of explore neuroimaging, and I had a bit of a background in dementia research. So I got pointed in the direction of the Florey because the Florey had a really good reputation for neuroimaging. There's a lot of sort of cutting edge neuroimaging techniques that are developed at the Florey. So that was a big part of what attracted me to the Institute. And
perhaps Brandon?
Yeah, I did my undergrad at Melbourne, did science, and all the lectures that I attended, I would always see some sort of Florey research mentioned in the slides, and I would always be amazed at the work that would come out of it. And basically, I just wanted to be a part of a successful team like that.
Ulyss?
It's the same for me as it was for Brandon. It's a great institute with really good facilities. You can use some really cutting edge technology, and it's a great collection of the best researchers around.
Great. And Lisa?
Yeah, so I met my supervisor at Open Day in 2017, so a couple of years ago now. And yeah, I was just like, I guess I really thought I really liked how well lit the labs were as a kind of superficial reason. But then I just got on really well with my supervisor when I started having kind of a chat to him and about his research. And really liked the idea. I guess I did biochemistry in undergrad, and liked the idea of kind of applying biochemistry as a tool to neuroscience problems. And even though I'm not maybe a neuroscientist, I was really drawn to being around really cool, innovative neuroscience.
So I might ask you a little bit too about the expectations. I mean, there are different lengths depending on obviously whether you're choosing honours or masters or PhD. So honours is a 1-year program, typically. Masters 18 months to 2 years. A PhD is sort of 3 to 3.5 years. So what have you found in terms of the expectation from your supervisors, and what's your typical workload throughout that period?
Yeah, so I found, yeah, honours is pretty full on in my experience. It is kind of pretty full time, kind of feels like, you know, a job more so than study did in undergrad. But at the same time, it's also often quite flexible. So, you know, there's not necessarily an expectation to work 9 to 5. It's more about kind of being productive and getting your experiments done. And like I don't do any animal work, so that gives me a bit more flexibility with when I can work than perhaps some people who have animals.
So who else would like to comment on that?
Yeah, just as a master's student, it's a little bit different with how our degree works compared to PhD and honours, because we have a significant coursework component. So we have to split our time between being in the lab and completing graduate coursework, which is just like how you would in undergraduate, with like completing exams and doing assignments, that kind of thing. Since this is my first year, it's usually preferable to do a lot of your coursework in the first year while you're still like writing up your literature review, getting to know your lab. And in the last year, it's more focused on research. So at the moment, I've done a significant coursework component, which has taken up a lot of my time. But as I go into next year, I'll be in the lab a lot more, and it's just a bit more spread out than an honours year.
Ramika,
Following up on that.
Oh, yeah, go on.
Yeah, an honours year is quite condensed. You don't have any coursework. You start off with a literature review at the start of the year in the first couple months. In that time, you also start getting training in the techniques that you'll be using and in the facilities that you need to use. And then after that, you'll be continuing on with your research component, hopefully trying to finish a couple months before November so you can write up your thesis.
And Ramika, how did you find things workload-wise
Yeah,
and expectation-wise?
so I suppose Lisa touched on this a lot for the PhD as well, but I suppose for me, one of the things that I tried to do during my PhD was sort of treat it like work. So in terms of workload, you know, there's a difference between projects. So for instance, if you do have animal work and things like that, you might have certain sort of expectations that are put on you to look after animals and whatnot. But from my point of view, doing an imaging sort of project, I tried to balance my hours as a sort of 9 to 5 kind of job, and that ended up working quite well. So if you make sure you're just sort of on top of your research, there is a bit of an expectation that you do manage your own workload quite well. So I think keeping that in mind is always important.
Yeah, and I think that's true across the board. No matter whether you're doing honours, master or PhD, it's much more independent than undergrad. But as you sort of progress up that spectrum, the projects are more broad. So in honours projects, much more focused, clear, defined aims right at the start. Whereas as you move towards a PhD, you've got more open aims, and things might change as you make discoveries along the way, and you become more and more independent. And of course, at the end of your PhD, you're really the world expert in that particular field. We've heard a couple of you mention sort of how you decided on your project and your lab. So how do you go about choosing a supervisor and approaching supervisors?
I did mine quite sequentially, I guess, or systematically. I actually printed out all of the projects on the Florey website, and I went through marking and highlighting the ones that interested me, and then I grouped them, met with supervisors for the projects that interested me, discussed them, and eventually systematically made a choice on, I think, who would be the best supervisor with a project that interested me.
Brandon, how about you?
Yeah, it was pretty much the same way that Yulis said. Basically, instead of, I didn't limit myself to the Florey at the time. I kind of had some projects that I was looking at in the MDHS faculty as well. So I essentially made a list of all the ones that interested me and narrowed it down to what I thought was the most suitable for me. And then it just so happens the Florey one was the one that I really wanted. So I went for that, and I was quite lucky to get that spot straight away.
Lisa or Rem, do you want to comment any further?
suppose I might mention, yeah, like I didn't come from Melbourne, so I didn't have exposure through lecturers and things like that to the sort of supervisors who are based at the Florey. So I was not nearly as systematic as I suppose Brandon and Euless, but I actually just got recommended a researcher at the Florey from my honours supervisor in Sydney. So it does go to show that I suppose, you know, researchers up at the Florey are really highly regarded both interstate and overseas. So you do have some really great researchers here. And I think in terms of choosing a supervisor, I think it's quite important that you choose someone who you do have a good working relationship with and who you will get along with, because you'll spend a lot of time with them, both in honours, masters and a PhD. So they're the sort of things to look out for. And
preparing for the meeting, do you have any hints or tips for people preparing to meet prospective supervisors?
Oh, sorry, Lisa, I thought you were about to say something, but do you want to go ahead?
I was just going to say as well that, yeah, like I did my undergrad in pharmacology and then ended up enrolling through biochemistry for honours. So not to limit yourself maybe to exactly the field that you did undergrad in, and, you know, think about, that your skills can be applied. You know, a biochemist can still do neuroscience and neuroscientists can do pharmacology. They're all just kind of words, and all the projects can be quite interdisciplinary. And so, yeah, just to look through, you know, all the projects that all the different faculties are providing, and kind of, think a bit more broadly, maybe if you're stuck in exactly what you might have done your major in. And in terms of preparing for the interview, yeah, like I think Florey researchers in general are pretty laid back, and, you know, like people don't, not everyone walks around in a suit at the Florey, so it's a pretty laid back place. So you don't really need to be too worried about meeting with people, and it's just really important, I think, to kind of see if you have a rapport with someone, and yeah, focus on seeing whether, you know, you have similar expectations for work ethic, and whether you click, and whether the research is interesting. And ultimately, I think supervisors love to see students who are passionate, and that's really the thing that is most important, to choose something that you're passionate about and actually really interested in.
Yeah, and I might add, I think this has been mentioned a few times throughout the open day, but you know, the research projects that you see online aren't concrete, and you should also like bring to the table what you want to do as well. So I think it's important to keep your best interests in mind and think about the sort of research that you want to be pursuing. So if you have an area that you're interested in, you know, you can bring sort of ideas to the table as well.
So perhaps you could each describe what a typical day looks like. I mean, it's different, obviously, in the different disciplines that you're working in. So maybe if we could get a feeling, you know, you're having a good day, what would be going on?
I guess I'll start. Well, I guess it differs with COVID, depending on whether I'm coming in for essential work or not. But generally, I'd come in and do some mouse behavioural work in the mornings, and depending on what I'm doing, that could take a few hours, or I could do some more in the afternoon with a lunch break. And then in the afternoons, I would do some thesis writing, or maybe typing up data and analysing it, and then feeding that back to other people in the lab that might be able to help you with it, or looking for guidance for what to do with the data next. That's a typical day.
Mine would be fairly similar to yours, pre-COVID. Now it's pretty much just writing my literature review at home. But on a normal day for me, I would usually spend half of it during doing coursework stuff and half of it in the lab. So trying to balance it, because I feel like if you focus on one thing too much, the other can get away from you very quickly. So yeah, maybe in the morning I would write up some, like an assignment or coursework stuff, and then I also do behavioral work with mice. So usually those experiments go for 2-3 hours. And then maybe some wet lab work as well. But yeah, you would split it up pretty evenly throughout the week, just so you're not doing one thing and burning yourself on that. And I feel like just spreading out your time on the multiple things that you have to do will hold up better in the long run. That's what I'm finding. But yeah, for now, I'm just writing because I can't go into the lab.
And a lot of time with wet lab work, there's periods of waiting where in that time you can go to your desk and then do some work.
Yeah, I kind of, on a typical week, I look after kind of human cell cultures. So there are live cells that need caring for 3 times a week. So I make sure I fit those sessions in. And then I often do protein purification. So those protocols can sometimes take 12 hours. So I'll pick a day that I have 12 hours to spare to do those kind of long experiments. Then I might do some experiments with some small molecule drugs and do some kind of more assay type experiments, which I can kind of fit in a bit more freely because they're kind of shorter term. So yeah, it takes a bit of planning and balancing all the different types of experiments you're doing. But that I really love, like being able to use multiple techniques in a week. That's the kind of what I love about science.
So my experience is a little bit different to the others because I don't do wet lab based work or animal work. I do neuroimaging work. So it's a lot more sort of computer based work. And I'm based at the Austin campus, which is a little bit more clinically facing. So I think the sort of experience that other students have at the Austin campus might be a little bit more interaction with patients and whatnot. So that's, a typical day for me is a lot more work on the computer and things like that. But another thing that I thought I might add is that there are a lot of opportunities for students that are out there. So for me, I try to do sort of a 9 to 5 kind of schedule for my work. But, Lisa mentioned that the Sophie committee, when you're a student, there'll be plenty of opportunities to have do social events, whether they be online due to COVID or face-to-face. So during my PhD, one of the things that really kept me going was being involved in a lot of those student run events and student committees. And, you can join the soccer team or do online yoga with other students and things like that. So there's a lot of other things that, the student committees offer to prospective students. So I think that's always important to be involved in those as it keeps you going through your research as well.
Mm. We've had someone ask a question, is coding experience required for an honours project? And, perhaps I can answer that. The answer is no, it's not. But there are certainly projects where coding experience would be valuable. As I guess you would have seen, there's a range of different projects that we have on offer. And some of that is very coding based, development of image processing algorithms and that sort of thing. And we are looking for students in computer science and physics and maths and engineering and stats, as well as students from wet lab biology and physiology and clinical as well. So really across the spectrum, there aren't many disciplines that you wouldn't find somewhere at the Florey. So just whatever your background, contact the supervisors that look like they're the best shot and have a chat about things like that. So what do you think are the typical sort of keys to success in the degrees, honours, PhD, masters? What really are tips for people to think about in making their work a success?
I think the main thing, having kind of seen lots of students kind of come through the lab, is just be passionate about what you're doing. If you're passionate about what you're doing, you'll work hard at it when you have to. You'll take breaks when you need them, and you'll kind of, develop the skills to lead your own project and, make your own scientific decisions. So obviously at the start of an honours, you're driven heavily by your supervisor, but the sooner you can really, grasp your project, read the literature and fall in love with it, I think that's what really makes you succeed.
Yeah, I feel like another thing that's really important for your success is to use all the resources that we have available at the Florey. We have so many postdocs and PIs that are just have so much knowledge, and it would be silly just not to utilize all the knowledge that's around you. And so developing relationships with other postdocs other than your supervisors or people from different labs to gain different perspectives, and even PhD students and other students, so you can just have that environment where you're constantly surrounded by different people's thoughts and different ways of thinking, it can really help you develop your own ways of thinking and broaden how you approach certain problems. And I was never exposed to that during my undergraduate degree. And so I find that has been a pretty big key to success, is just talking to as many people as I can to broaden my thinking.
Yeah, just to add on what Brandon said as well, I think, you know, a PhD in particular, and also honours and masters, can be quite isolating. It is quite an independent research project, and you do end up really honing your skills in a specific area and doing your own kind of independent research project. So from that point of view, I think it is really important to draw on the sort of support networks that are available to you. So, you know, whether that be your supervisors or mentors or your friends and family, I think it's really important to have people you can talk to about things, and making sure you do draw on those support networks is really important, because I think often we do end up thinking that, you know, it's your own battle to sort of overcome, but really there's a lot of support out there for you too. So I think it's always important to keep that in mind.
So it might be worth mentioning too that there's you know, in the PhD stream, there's a support structure in place with an advisory committee that consists not just of your supervisors, but also other senior researchers and subject matter experts. So you know, there is quite a lot of support around the PhD from an academic point of view, beyond your supervisors. And it's also worth mentioning that generally you'll have more than one supervisor in a PhD. So although you'll probably be approaching one principal supervisor, you'll have at least one co-supervisor. So there's always that, you know, other person to bounce ideas off as well. So can I ask the panel, what are the most valuable things you think you've gained from your degree to date?
I'd say probably the most valuable thing is not necessarily the individual skills, but how to think scientifically, how to think like a researcher, because that is quite a hard skill to grasp.
I think I've really gained kind of a bit more of an understanding about what I enjoy and what I want to do. When I started honours, in undergrad, I had no idea what I wanted to do. When I started honours, I didn't know whether I wanted to do a PhD, and now that I'm doing a PhD, I feel like I've figured out which parts of research I like, and that I'm interested in, you know, the translational aspect of it, that I really enjoy being in the wet lab. I didn't know those things when I was in undergrad, and it's only through the experience of doing it that I've realized the parts of it that I enjoy and the parts that I don't. And I don't think you can find that out anyway, but trying it.
I've found that one of the most valuable things that I think I've gained is not so much a tangible thing, but the fact that you realize everyone is constantly learning around you. It doesn't matter if you're a student or a postdoc or even like a PI. From the conversations that I've had with all of those people, it's always apparent that everyone wants to try and get better and improve their work. And I feel like science is one of those fields where there's always that opportunity. And I've always wanted to be in an environment where that's the goal. So I feel like being at the Florey has made me realize that, and has made me want to pursue a career in research because of that. And it's important to know that, everyone is learning and not everyone has everything set out. And I feel like I've kind of understood that in the year that I've been here.
Yeah, even to just add to Brandon's comment as well, I'm not sure if I'm answering the question here, but I think one of the really nice things about doing my PhD at the Florey, I just was really passionate about neuroscience. And I think during your PhD, you do end up sort of, you know, focusing on a really, really particular area. So for me, that was neuroimaging. But I think the opportunities are there for you at the Florey. If you're interested in neuroscience, there's always opportunity to learn. We have seminar series, and you're always learning about what other people are doing. And so I think that sort of environment is really, really exciting to be a part of. And in terms of sort of the valuable skills that you can gain from doing a research degree, you know, you do obviously gain experience with particular techniques and, you know, in a particular sort of disease base or whatnot. But, you know, you do actually pick up a lot of skills along the way that are just really valuable, even if you don't end up staying in research. So, you know, PhD graduates and, you know, honours and masters, they're really sought after in work environments as well, like in various industries, just because you do pick up a lot of just time management and, you know, skills and just the capacity to think for yourself, because you do really have to start thinking independently and thinking scientifically, which I think are just good skills to have.
Yeah, definitely. Well, look, I'm mindful of the time and we're really approaching the end here. So really just remains for me to thank all the panelists for coming along and sharing your experience. I'm sure the audience will appreciate that. We can't sort of do a physical clap, but thank you everybody for coming along. And for those people attending the seminar today, thank you very much for coming along. I hope that we've piqued your interest in research. I mean, it's a wonderful privilege, I think, working in research and really, you know, we don't have the answer at the back of the textbook. When you start doing this sort of work, you're really in discovery. So, you know, it's an exciting career path to choose. So I wish everybody attending all the best in pursuing whatever they do decide to do. And remember, go to our website and contact our student support and our supervisors if you're interested in further information.